Why has the SADC region declared this year's El-Nino induced drought a regional disaster? And what is the current state of drought in South Africa? How has this driest period in decades impacted food security within the region? And to what extent has the persistent drought affected large and small scale farmers? What time is it? It's question time. Welcome to the show. My name is Mpho Seidu. Drought and food insecurity remain some of the current challenges facing the Southern African development community. Earlier this year, SADC member states declared drought a regional disaster. In a bid to tackle the effects of this phenomenon, ministers of agriculture from the region met in Botswana's capital, Gaborone, late last month. Meanwhile, the Southern African Food and Nutrition Security Working Group has warned that food insecurity is likely to deepen. The region has only avert this, or rather can only avert this, by putting urgent measures in place to mitigate against the effects of the El-Nino phenomenon. We are live, and therefore you can call us and air your views. The numbers to dial 089-110-4210 to handle at question time. For my guest today, Semi Palani. He's the Chief Executive Officer at Green Buds Fresh Produce Market. And Mike Mlengana is the President at the African Farmers Association of South Africa. Gentlemen, let me welcome you to the show. I know we've had you before. But let's firstly talk about the effects of the drought. How did it affect you as a sector?
Thank you. Drought came unexpected. We did not plan for drought. We thought this was a regular season. Consequently, our animals suffered. There was no water. And secondly, cattle, we could not plant. We began to feel the challenge, but we were not ready for it. Both small and small and big commercial farmers.
Yes.
But it began to be more serious at the rural area level because there were no boreholes. There was nothing. They depended on rivers and streams. Their cattle were lying everywhere dead. They wondered what was going on. Some thought it was a disease coming from somewhere. And consequently, we had to appeal to government to intervene and intervene in specific terms. And I think the government has responded pretty much positive in terms of what it has for us. But the impact in terms of the number of animals that died has affected the rural areas more than, in fact, the communal farmers more than the commercial farmers. You have a person with 5 cattle, and all of those cattle die. You wonder what is going to be the source of income and growth for this person. That is the sadness you see in rural areas. You see cattle almost licking the ground, the earth itself, in an attempt to try to get food. Those were the sins that we have never seen before. And those sins are still staying with us right now because this rain has not come. Rain has not come. We're getting into winter. And winter is known to be the season of dryness. So the communal and smallholder farmers have been severely affected by this. I personally lost about 30 cattle. And I know of many of our colleagues who have lost cattle. White commercial farmers could not plant. It was dry. Consequently, there are perceptions that now we're not going to have food security because white maize is not there. Yellow maize is being imported. For the first time, this country is not sufficient, is an importer, net importer of grain. Something
that's serious. I mean, if that's the case, then why are we not being told about all this? If there's no white maize, that's a disaster.
I think we've begun. Organized agriculture has been talking and discussing with government on this. Government has set up task teams for us to begin to import, to now say we must import. Because food security, especially at rural level, is affected. Our people are affected at rural level because this is their basic staple food. And if this food is not available, I shudder to think what the consequences could be. But the government is beginning to realize the urgency to import. and also the agency to intervene in the short term in terms of boreholes and provision of emergency feed. So in that sense, one can see hope in the short term. But in the long term, we need to bring planning to the fore.
You're running the actual business of farming. What are you selling?
We sell processed and whole fruits and vegetables and eggs to the mines, to the hotels, schools feeding scheme program, hospitals, correctional services, and the public at large. So the impact of what you call droughts and El-Nino to our business was basically the prices started, going up. I mean, we know in South Africa that cabbage is a food that poor people eat. So if you have to buy it for about 20 rand, you can imagine the consequences and the effect thereof. So yeah, it's quite a very, very serious challenge that we definitely have to find innovative ways of making sure that we keep this thing going forward. One of the things that I have in mind, or which I think need to happen, we need to have more growers, and growers should be actually. We cannot rely on
small scale
and commercial, because they cater different markets. Like right now, most of the farmers, commercial farmers, like big corporation doing apples and what, is a good price, is a good time for them to export.
Okay.
And we have scarcity in South Africa, so only a person who has having enough money can be able to afford to eat apple. So everything that big farmers are able to take these things overseas. So if we have to cultivate, grow the grower, have small scale farmers to participate, there is a certain niche that they can be able to cover in the spectrum.
But are we currently buying food at a reasonable price?
I think no, we are not.
Why? Is it because of the scarcity of water?
Scarcity of water is one of that, but also the value chain has been skewed. We need to have more producers, and government and other institutions need to really come up and try to make sure that we capacitate all these small scale farmers to get to that level whereby it's demand and supply.
Who are your suppliers?
Just
give me a what? Just describe me your suppliers. Who's supplying you?
Okay, before I can talk about my supplier, I'll have to give you the profile of my client. It will be the platinum producers, the mines, all those guys. I need to feed those guys, and I sell per kilogram. And for me to be able to be profitable, I need somebody who's planting. A farmer should be able to have 1,000 of hectares to produce cabbage. So I'll get some of the produce from commercial farmers, but also leave a certain percentage of my producer, small scale, to come to supply me, so as I can be able to satisfy the thing. So I'm trying to sort of balance or try to bring the new players on the market by subsidizing them using the commercial farmers.
Okay.
Yes.
Hold it there. I want us to take a quick break. When we return, let's look at this value chain, which is talking about why is food expensive and how are you, as African farmers, going to ensure that we don't go hungry and we buy food cheap. The number to dial, 089-110-4210, and we shall return shortly.
Other person has been shot dead and another is in a critical condition in hospital.
The CRL has laid charges against controversial televangelist Paseka Motsoeneng.
More than 1.3 million South Africans have been added in the past two registration weekends.
The International Monetary Fund warns that policy uncertainty could dampen economic growth in South Africa.
And all eyes are on the new Bok coach, Alistair Coetzee, his challenge to keep everyone in the country happy.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. My guest today is Amy Palani. He's the CEO at Green Buds Fresh Produce Market, and Mike Mlengan is the president of the African Farmers Association of South Africa. And we're talking food security here in South Africa now.
Well, the first thing is that I think the private sector and the public sector should come together. The government must begin to help in the importation of maize. It is the staple food of our people. We cannot let that to the markets, otherwise we'll be exploited. The second thing is that it is important for rural people to begin to be proactive in the manner in which they plant. They must begin to have an insight, for example, that today they must plant grass as feed. When the rains, for example, started coming up in December, we started planting grass so that winter does not hit us. Because we know when winter comes, we're in trouble, there's drought. And I think the commercial farmers of South Africa in particular, they need government support at this stage. They are competing with European countries or European farmers that are being subsidized by their governments. Consequently, even if they will try to reduce prices, their prices will always be expensive because they are producing in circumstances where it is difficult to produce. The cost of production is increased, yet the real income is not increased. That is the same with rural areas. Their average real income or the purchasing power of their income has not increased, yet food prices has rocketed. So how do we then ameliorate this? I think I start by encouraging farmers in rural areas to begin to work the fields. I wouldn't like to encourage dependency on government. As the African Farmers Association of South Africa, we stated very clearly that we want to see at the end of our term a black smallholder farmer that is self-reliant. Self-reliant, not depending on government or anybody, but on oneself.
Do you have the land to farm?
We do have the land, and I think the government has been dealing with this issue of redistributing land. We need now to partner with government in ensuring that the land that is being distributed is actually utilized, so that the emphasis is more on land value than on land distribution only. So it seems to me that if we can emphasize, we put our emphasis on production, we are now going to be aware of all the factors that influence production. One of those factors is going to be the cost of products, especially inputs. The other one is going to ensure that when we produce, we now begin to anticipate weather patterns by dealing with our weather bureau people, which has not happened before. You have got maybe it happened, but at a rate that was not coordinated. We need to ensure that we integrate the knowledge we have in the sector to our advantage. And to this day, that has not happened. Just the last point, we have begun already in November to start planting feed for winter. And I'm encouraging all the smallholders in South Africa, smallholder farmers, to begin to do that. Reliance on government is good at this time because this we did not expect, but we cannot rely on government for the entire period of our lives in agriculture.
The challenges that are being faced now by those people who supply people like you, how can they avoid them?
Okay, firstly, I want to dispel the myth that there are not producers there, especially rural and subsistence and black farmers. We've got lots of those people there, and access to land. Most of them, last month I did a very, very serious tour. I spent 5 days to the outmost, places in Northwest, trying to facilitate and coordinate and try to see what do we have out there. what I've observed is people will plant, will prepare the soil, will really produce very good produce, but they get to a point whereby, I mean, right now government has been promoting cooperatives and all the other guys who are able to produce independently to do so. So I found a situation, or my findings were, these people will produce, but some of their produce will just, they have to donate and give it to the orphanage and stuff like that. And agriculture is business. It should be treated like that.
Okay, hold it there. Let's take Fred. Fred, you are in Musina. Welcome.
Good evening.
Go ahead.
I like your program. It's a very nice one.
Oh, thank you very much, Fred.
My contribution is there will be no way forward without the government putting a hand to these farmers. Please, if the farmers can help these farmers, I mean, the government can help these farmers to become right.
Okay, is government helping the farmers, or can government help the farmers?
Government must help the farmers financially.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, the question of subsidies.
Can I come in there?
All right, go ahead.
Okay. There are projects. I mean, since '94, government has been intervening, and corporate as well, like the mines will be, giving a community, land and capacitate them. But the end product, where do this produce go to? So that's where the problem is, because we don't have to we don't want to create a situation whereby we're going to have subsistence farmers throughout. So most of them, and agriculture is not appealing to young people, because a young 18 years or 16, they've been seeing their parents doing this thing, and there's no growth. So if we can open markets, a simple example, you have a mining company going there to help a certain community to produce. But in the mine canteen, they are eating. Why can't they link that particular tomato or green pepper, cabbage to get to the canteen? In most cases, all these guys, they've been operating in silos. We need to break that kind of thing and say, we also want to have farmers, subsistence farmers, to start, organizing themselves and trying to really close the gap, because production is there. We don't want to create an impression that there's thing. If we can get more callers, they'll be telling you that we have so many 30 tons of butternut that they're lying on my thing. I need to feed the pig.
Joseph, you are in Witbank.
Yeah,
go ahead, Baba.
Yeah,
akunankinga bhuti wami, qhubeka.
Yeah, uJoseph Ngaramashele isibongo.
Yeah.
uJoseph Ngaramashele isibongo.
Qhubeka baba.
So nginendawo lapha eThembisa la engakhona ukulima kuyo, ngangena wonke iminyango yegovernment, but angizange be successful.
Okay, unani
sithi bekuyiplug le ndawo, so kwakhiwe manje la bayizicade lapha eThembisa kwakhiwe, but nginendawo mina engayinikezwa yilo mlungu njengoba sihlala eplazini lapha eThembisa.
Ufuna ukulima khona
njengoba igovernment ithi abantu kufanele baye ukuthi kufanele kunikeze abantu indawo zokulima emakhaya, but what about around la kune business khona like njengabo Joburg, because kunendawo zabantu abathola indawo zabo okanye umuntu wanikezwa indawo for uyisebenzisa ukulima, but
indawo engakanani but Joseph
but land bank ngifuna imali, ngahluleka ngahamba ngaya Pitori ngingena iminyango yonke yegovernment, even ase land distribution land ngafika, but angizange be successful.
Indawo engakanani but Joseph?
Inkudlwanyana but le ndawo banginikeza
ama hectares
ngathi about
ama hectares, indawo engakanani?
No, ima hectares, but indawo nje enele ekutheni ukuthi mangabe ufuna ukutshala mhlawumbe ama vegetable ungatshala ngale ndlela ofuna ngayo.
All right, but Joseph, uzolalele emsakazweni ke sibone ukuthi bazokunceda kanjani. Well, Joseph, let me just interpret for some of our other viewers. Of course, Joseph they're saying he's got a piece of land, he can't put it in hectares. He says it's a reasonably big piece of land which can be utilized for farming, and he has gone to various institutions, government, knocked on various doors, and he hasn't had any form of help there.
I think there are two things, and I understand the frustration of Joseph. The government has embarked, I'll talk as if I'm a government employee, I'm not. The government has created what we call agri-parks. They have identified a number of depressed areas economically, and so I think about 44 of them. Within those areas, they are coming up, they are spending about 6 billion, 1 billion a year, and they are creating agri-parks. Those agri-parks, you can call it, is an integrated service village, where all the farmers in that area with different commodities work together. I would like to suggest to Joseph Mfethu, kage ujong ukuthi akhona namanye amafama next to you. Do you have other farmers next to you who you can work together so that your production is not only for food security, you can also sell your produce and get money. But if you are alone, Joseph, you are going to be outcompeted by the guys who are producing more than you. You have got about a hectare. The next guy who are going to be sitting within the market is going to be sitting with about 15 hectares. And that guy is prepared to make sure that you take his price. And you have produced at a huge cost. And this guy comes in and said, well, mine is 15 rand, yours is 12 rand. Then what? Mine is 12 rand, yours is 15 rand. You come back home complaining. But if you harness the power of many via the cooperatives, you are able to be giving prices to the market as opposed to be absorbing. But more importantly, Joseph, please go around and find out about agri-parks.
Okay.
Agri-parks talk to your problem.
Mafula, you are in Pretoria. Welcome.
Hello, how are you?
We're well. Thanks for the call.
I'm all right. My question is related to Mr. Mlangeni of Afasa.
Yes.
I heard that he's talking about the improvements and self-reliant of small emerging farmers, especially livestock. I would like to challenge him and say, what are they doing as a FASA, as a union, in terms of helping these small emerging farmers in terms of programs that they have, except programs that is being saying from government? Because what I'm hearing from him is talking about programs from government. I want to know from on their side, what support are they giving to these farmers? Because they are really struggling there on the ground. And I'm also on the ground. I know the struggle that these farmers are. In terms of self-reliance, I don't know how long is it going to take for these farmers to be self-reliant. Yes, we want them to be self-reliant, but as a union, what are they doing?
Thank you very much, Ndr Mafula.
I think that's a very good question, and maybe we have not marketed it well. Our first and foremost was to come up with an electronic register of farmers that belong to us. And once we know what commodities these farmers are doing, we began to link with other training institutions to train the farmer on farming that particular commodity. At the center of that training is the insistence that the farmer begins to see his farming or her farming as a business enterprise. And once the farmer begins to see his farming enterprise that way, he then begins to understand that this is his lifeblood. Once you know that it is your lifeblood, you begin to be responsible for it. What indeed Afasa may not have communicated properly are the training programs that we are doing. Please go to your next, you can take my numbers later, get to your next farming community and ask about cooperatives. I still want to believe that cooperatives are good for smallholder farmers, especially if you are driving one commodity. Okay. For example, NERPO, which is a commodity of red meat, is formed of black farmers. That has money that it lends to its members for them to be able to buy cattle, to buy goats, to buy sheep. We are doing that as AFASA. We raise these funds in collaboration with the Land Bank. So I think what maybe we have not communicated strongly is how do you access membership of NERPO? How do you access the various stakeholders, i.e. the Land Bank, for example?
Okay, where are you located? Where can people get?
We are located in Linwood. And, well, I made a mistake last time by issuing my number. I did not bring the number of our head office. Okay. But what I'll do, I'll leave it with you, and then you can communicate from there.
All right. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, and but we will be revisiting this issue sometime again next week to look at young farmers, as well as we celebrate this Youth Month. And that was question time for today. But before we say our goodbyes, indeed, it has been a tragic period. We've lost Muhammad Ali, and we just want to say from our team here at the SABC and Question Time in particular, may their souls rest in peace. Muhammad Ali, Nyembezi Gunene, and Stephen Keshi. That was Question Time for today. Have yourself a wonderful time. Goodbye.